Hi everybody. I hope that you can hear me properly. I hope that all this is working. Wow, technology. Welcome to Confessions of an Emotional Eater. Here on the blog today, I'm going to be lifting the lid on my journey with food and my journey with my body. And as some of you might be aware, today is the first day of Body Image and Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is an initiative that's run by the Butterfly Foundation here in Australia, really just to raise awareness for people out there that are struggling with body image issues and with eating disorders, and there really are so many of us. So I wanted to host this web chat today to celebrate that Awareness Week and to really help you to see one really important point. And I'm just going to share a slideshow with you if it works. So also while I'm here, there's a comment section at the bottom of this blog page. So if you have any questions at all, just post it down there and I'll try and get it to it by the end of our chat today. So I'm just going to open this up. And that is that you are not alone. And in my work as a body love and emotional eating coach, I see so many women that feel really alone when they say things like, hey, I'm eating endless amounts of cupcakes and I just cannot stop shoveling food in my mouth. Am I crazy? Or, hey, I look in the mirror and I feel disgusted by what I see and I just want to slice parts of me off. Am I crazy? And, you know, those kinds of questions totally valid, and it's true that we just don't have any idea how other people are feeling and whether or not these things that we are feeling right now are totally in our heads. So I want you to know, beautiful lady, that you are totally not alone, and I for one have been there exactly where you are, and I understand how incredibly difficult journeys like this are. So you've got me. If you have any questions, if you need support, that's what I'm here for. And that's what beautiful organizations like the Butterfly Foundation are for. So if you are struggling, reach out and put your hand up and say that you needed some help. So here are some of the stats. It's mad, and body image is an issue that is on the increase. It is kind of out of control at the moment. And 80% of women are dissatisfied with their bodies. 80%, I think that is huge. And an estimated 20% of us will struggle with an eating disorder at some point in our lives. I'm one of those people. I knew at least 3 people that I was at university with that struggled with eating disorders as well. The problem was that we didn't know that each other had them. So it was really difficult for us to support each other because we didn't put our hands up and talk to each other about it. But 20% of us, that's, you know, a lot of people will struggle with an eating disorder at some point in their life. And dieting is the biggest risk factor for developing an eating disorder. And how many of us can say we've never been on a diet? We've all dieted at some point in our life. And so I'd like to address right now why I think it is huge at the moment, why I think that we are becoming less and less in love with our bodies, why we are feeling less and less worthy. And I think it's because it's an industry. So if we look at the economics, the weight loss industry has 7 billion reasons why they want you to think you're fat. So by them, first of all, making us feel like we're fat, we're then going to spend money on countless numbers of weight loss products in order to lose weight, to be better, and to feel better about ourselves. And then, of course, the fashion, the beauty, the pharmaceutical, and the cosmetic surgery industries, they win when we feel like we're ugly too, because we're going to buy their products. And I know it sounds a little bit cynical, but it's kind of the truth, because when you walk down the street, you see billboards. When you turn on the TV, you see advertisements. When you flick through a magazine, you see so many conflicting stories and so much evidence to suggest that in order to be successful and worthy of love and all of these amazing things, that you need to be beautiful and thin. And of course, social media is making all of this even more difficult. I don't think there's ever been a time where we've been more easily able to compare ourselves to other people. And the thinspo and fitspo sort of craze is making us all feel a little bit less in love with our tummies. So all of these things put together are causing us to be feel less and less beautiful. And so I think it's time for us to make a change. I think it's time for us to make peace with food, to make sure that we don't think that food is the enemy, because food, things like eating disorders and obsessive eating, it's like an addiction. We become addicted to food, and it's the only addiction that we can't fully walk away from, because we've got to eat at least 3 times a day. So it's time for us to make peace with food, and it's time for us to make peace with ourselves. It's time for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and really look at ourselves and say that we love who we are, that we know that we are worth so much more than our appearances, and that we know we can achieve beautiful, amazing, awesome things in this life. So let me tell you a little story. And it's around this very fact. You are not broken. Just humor me for a minute. So when I was younger, I thought I was fat. I was so convinced that I was fat. And when I hit puberty, and I was about 11, so I was a little bit younger than most people, I felt heavy, I felt wide, I felt big boned, I felt like my curves were a curse. And it was constantly reassured by the magazines that I was reading, by other people that I was surrounded with, that unless I lost weight, I wouldn't be successful, I wouldn't be liked, I wouldn't be happy, I would never find a boyfriend, I would never be loved. And so I decided in that point that I would believe that I'm not beautiful. I would believe that I'm fat, and I would believe that I'm not worthy. And it was those beliefs that really started me off on this downward spiral of low self-esteem. And I began to watch everything that I ate. I thought that every cupcake was going to add to my thighs. I thought that every sandwich was going to add a roll on my stomach. And I thought that every dinner was going to take me further away from finding a boyfriend. And I felt broken. I honestly felt broken. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to talk to about this. And I didn't know how I could possibly put myself back together. And I struggled with this for many, many years, and I shut a lot of people out. And it wasn't until I was 19 that things kind of got really bad. And I sought out the help of a GP. I said to him, I feel really unhealthy. I got diagnosed with PCOS at that time. And this GP, I'm sure he was well-meaning, said to me, you should be in the best state of your life. You should look the best that you're ever going to look. You're 19, right? So he prescribed me this magic pill, and really all it is legalized speed. And he gave it to me and he said, here, take this for 2 weeks, and this will kickstart you on your journey to losing weight and feeling better. And within 2 weeks, I'd lost 15 kilos. I was finally a size 10, whereas when I first started taking the pill, I was nearly a size 14. And I wasn't huge by any stretch of the imagination. But for the first time in my life, my stomach was flat. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared by the size of my thighs. I was on top of the world. And rather than being obsessed with losing weight, I then just became obsessed with not putting this weight back on. And so I knew that the end of this 2-week stint was coming up, and I begged my mum to take me to another doctor to get another prescription, because one doctor couldn't give you more than one prescription. And I got it. And within 3 days into this new course, I realized that something was up. My heart was pounding. I was sweating. I was dizzy because I wasn't hungry and I was dehydrated. And in a sense, none of that mattered to me because I was thin, right? And that was the whole point. But at some part of me realized that this obviously was not good for my body, and I decided to stop. And that's when the bulimia set in. So I would go to the gym for 3 hours a day. I would feel guilty about every single thing that I put in my mouth. I would come home after a long day at uni and I would eat an entire loaf of bread, and then I would pop like nearly an entire packet of laxatives to try and get whatever it was that I'd eaten and all those calories out of me. I would starve myself for at least 3/4 of every single day. And it wasn't working. I was still putting on weight, because what I didn't realize was that at the same time I was screwing up my hormones, I was aggravating my PCOS, and I was causing my digestive system so much harm through the laxatives and the starvation that it wasn't able to assimilate nutrients anymore. And so my body was kind of going into a state of shock, and I was putting on weight. And so you see, all of this together was just this huge, perfect storm of hell. And I was depressed and I was anxious. And Mum took me to a GP to get help, and prescription for Zoloft later, and referral to a psychologist for cognitive behavioral therapy. I thought I was on my way to getting better. But after a few sessions, I realized that this lady wasn't giving me what I wanted. I wanted to be thin, and I was actually putting on more and more weight because now I was on antidepressants, and it was just, she wasn't giving me what I wanted. So I left treatment. And I'd like to say that then I went on this, big journey of introspection, and I fixed myself and I overcame it at that point, but that's not the truth. I just found myself a boyfriend. And when my belief that I was never going to be loved got shattered by finding myself someone who loved me, I didn't need food anymore, and I stopped binging, and I thought I was better until I broke up with my ex-husband. And then all of the things that I felt back then when I was 19 came flooding back to me. And again, I felt broken. I felt stupid almost this time, because I should know better, because I'm older, because I've now got 2 children, because these are things only teenagers do. And it was worse this time. But thankfully, this was the time that I did the work. And I looked inside me and I questioned what it was that I believed. So I'd like for us to do a little exercise together so that you can start off, or revisit if you're already down the journey, how I started to think differently about myself, and how I started to make peace with food and to make peace with the body that I'm in. So grab a pen and paper, or just open up notes or some kind of word application on your computer or your phone. And I just would like you to jot down, what do you believe? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about others, about your body, about food, about the world? What do you believe about love? And the big one, what do you believe about your worth? So I will just pop on some music and you can have a chance to do that. If it's going to work.
Listen now to your mind. When it tells you to do what your heart says to do, don't be shy. Finally, we will see. We will do what we please without blood, sweat, and tears. Finally, it's hard to tell where I'm going most days. I know it's gonna take some time. I will do what I have to follow. I will follow, do what I have to. Staring out back. Times like gives me hope that someday soon I'll find you right. You can be. Universe where we're dreams and sin. Pass a light like torches in my hand. I will do. I will find you. I will find you. I have to find you.
Okay, so I hope you got some really beautiful things out of that. And I just realized while I was checking the computer that you probably haven't seen the slides that I was putting up. So I just wanted to pop up this other slide that I had on the stats. So I'm going to make this slideshow available afterwards, as well as the recording of this. So if you missed it, don't worry, you'll be able to see it later. So that brings me to my next very important point. And one of my most favorite authors is Janine Roth, and she wrote 2 books that I particularly love, one called Women, Food and God, and one called Breaking Free from Emotional Eating. And she taught me some really incredible things on my journey to loving my body and making peace with food. And one of those things was that there are always exquisitely good reasons that you turn to food when you're not hungry. And I know that that's sort of changed everything for me, because it kind of made me feel like, oh, it's okay. It's okay that I eat ice cream when I break up with my boyfriend. It's okay that I eat chocolate when I'm stressed. And it just let me feel like, make this big sigh of relief, like, oh, like I'm okay, I'm human. So I wanted to share that one with you and just say that emotional eating isn't the problem. Having an eating disorder isn't the problem. Hating your body isn't the problem. Harming yourself is not the problem. They're just huge neon signs of an underlying symptom that you don't love the person that you are, and that you are not in love with the life that you have. And that's incredibly empowering when you get to that point, because it's things that you can kind of work on. It's things that you can kind of fix, which seem a lot easier than, why can't I stop shoveling food in my mouth? You know, why is this so difficult for me? So now that we know that the food and emotions are inextricably linked, they're together. We crave different foods when we want different things. So food is insanely pleasurable, and we use it for good reason. So sometimes we use food to escape the emotions that we're feeling. Sometimes we want to numb what we're feeling. Sometimes we just want to be distracted from whatever circumstance is going on around us. Plus, it feels good, right? Like all that sugar and fat inside our stomachs, it creates serotonin, which is the happy hormone. So it actually creates pleasure for us. And I think that as soon as we understand that's what food does for us, we can feel a little less crazy about what it's doing for us. So here I've got some of the things that we crave for different reasons. So ice cream to numb a broken heart, chocolate to calm anxiety and stress, and lollies to lift our mood, cupcakes and donuts when we're lonely, and salty chips when we're bored. And I think that's really, really quite revolutionary. So the next thing I wanted to say was that food is not good or bad. So many times we spend thinking that food is the enemy and that we need to fear it. And knowing that no food is good, no food is bad, it just is food, can help us to really feel free about the demonization of what we're putting on our plate, and help us to start to trust our body and what it wants. what it wants to eat. And that's going to bring me to the number one tip, the number one thing that I wanted to share with you today, the number one thing that has helped me endlessly on my journey and really shocked me into changing some of my habits and some of the beliefs that I had about myself and some of the things that I thought about food. And that also came from Jim Roth, and it is eat when you're hungry and eat what your body wants. So if you aren't physically hungry, but you're finding that you want to eat, then ask yourself what it is you're really hungry for and then honor that. So sometimes, like I said, we eat because we're lonely. And so is it really that we want, some companionship with somebody? And so instead of downing a whole packet of Cheetos, you can call a friend. And when you realize the connection between the emotion and the behavior, you can make different choices, more nourishing choices, choices that are going to help you in the long term. And this one rule will change everything for you. So have that in the front of your mind. If you're really struggling with binging at the moment, reminding yourself constantly just to eat when I'm hungry and to ask yourself, am I physically hungry right now? And go with that. And if you are physically hungry, then eat whatever you want. Eat whatever your body's telling you that you want. Trust your body knows exactly what you need. And if you're not physically hungry, then you can do something else more nourishing for yourself. Part of the problem is that we don't often know what physical hunger feels like. We don't let ourselves get hungry very often. Food is so abundantly available in our society that it's really difficult for us to actually start to distinguish between physical hunger and emotional hunger. So that really is your biggest challenge. And once you nail that, you can overcome emotional eating and you can start to make peace with your food. So here are my top tips, the top 5 things that I would say to do if you're struggling with binging, if you're compulsive eating, if you're not even tasting your food as it goes down your throat, just like I do. And that is, again, the number 1 is eat when you're hungry. The number 2 is to shift your beliefs. So whatever your beliefs were that you wrote down earlier on in this call, have another look at them and see if you can switch them around to things like you are enough, you're worthy, and you deserve love. They're really, really important things that we don't often think about. And I know you're probably going to have this like little bit of resistance to it. Like, am I really enough? Like, am I really worthy? Do I really deserve love? And I want you to know that you do. You absolutely do. Then you can drop the guilt. So feeling guilty about what we eat never helps, whether or not it's the healthiest thing for us or something that's probably not the best thing for us. We will feel guilty, and then the food is bound to have a negative impact in our body because we're eating it with negative emotion in mind. So dropping the guilt and saying, you know what, I feel like chocolate chip cookies right now, and that's fine. Like, I'm good with it. I feel like it. I'm eating mindfully. I'm sitting down. I'm enjoying it. Then go with it. Chocolate chip cookies are fine. So dropping the guilt is probably one of the things that's going to really help you to stop at 1 cookie instead of 50. And then number 4 is to nourish yourself. And again, it's coming back to that question that I said before about what are you really hungry for? And if it's love, then what can you do about finding love? If it's loneliness, then what can you do about finding companionship? Who can you call? Who can you go and see? And trust me, over time you'll start to realize that nourishment comes from many, many places and not just food. And number 5 would be to gather support. To really, as I said at the very beginning of this chat, like to put up your hand and say, I need help. I want someone to talk to. I want to be honest and open about this. I want to start to heal this. And I think that's going to really help you to make peace with yourself, really. And this is where, I think there's a delay in the broadcast. So if you want to have any questions, shoot them through right now before I just do my last little bit, and then I can try and answer them at the end. So on the support thing, I've got something really exciting to tell you. I'm announcing a Mindful Eaters Circle. It's an opportunity for a group of women in Perth to get together and to support each other, just like I was talking about, to talk openly about our relationships with food, to talk openly about how we feel about ourselves, and to start to heal and make peace with food and ourselves together. So if you're in Perth, I'll be so excited if you come along to this. I'm really, really pumped about this initiative. So for 4 weeks on a Monday evening around this time between 6 and 8, we will catch up somewhere in Perth, and we'll meditate together. We'll do some mindful eating exercises, some journaling, and we'll have each other's support and endless love. And this will really help you to move past that torturous relationship that we can have with food and to start to feel so much better about what's on your plate. So there's only 10 spots, so if you really want to get in, then jump in quickly. And for people that are not in Perth, if there's enough of a interest, if you guys are just keen as mustard to get on board as well, then I can maybe run a web hang version. And there's some really awesome software that we can use so we can see each other and support each other through it. So thank you guys so much for being here. I am just going to check the questions. But if you don't have any, that's cool. You can pop some up later and I can just type back and answer to you, given that we're nearly running out of time and I don't want to hold you up for any longer. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for putting up with the technical stuff. The first time you do something is always nice and scary. And if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to anybody about anything that you're struggling with, please just email me, vanessa@learn.grow.heal.com.au, and I will speak to you all soon. So thank you so much for being here. Bye.